Blood stained the edge of the royal seal. Elara Voss stared at it from the center of the great hall, where it rested on a silver evidence tray beneath the cold glow of the moonstone chandeliers. Only minutes earlier, that same tray had carried the ancestral Luna ring. Now 300 wolves watched as 2 royal guards stood behind her, with their hands on their swords. At the top of the black marble dais, Crown Prince Cassian Vale looked down at her as though she were a stranger. "Elara," he said, his voice carrying through the hall, "the royal seal was found inside your ceremonial cloak." Her heart struck painfully against her ribs. The mate bond between them pulsed with confusion, reaching toward him for reassurance. It found only a wall of ice. "I did not put it there." Her voice remained steady. She could smell fear among the gathered pack leaders, mixed with suspicion and the sharp excitement of those who enjoyed watching powerful people fall. Beside Cassian stood Lady Seraphine Ardent, dressed in pale gold. Her hands were folded delicately before her, but her eyes never left the Luna ring that had been removed from the tray. Council Lord Malrek stepped forward. "We also recovered copies of the eastern border maps from a rebel courier," he announced. "The documents carry Lady Elara's authorization mark." A guard placed a blood-packed paper beside the seal. Elara studied it. The signature resembled hers, but the final stroke curved left instead of right. "A forgery. Bring me the archive ledger," she said. "Compare the ink. Compare the scent impressions on the seal. I have not entered the royal vault in 6 days." Murmurs moved through the hall. Malrek's expression tightened. Cassian did not order the ledger brought forward. Instead, he descended 1 step from the throne. "You expect me to delay judgment while our enemies use information taken from my own palace? I expect you to investigate before condemning your mate." The word mate struck him harder than she intended. Cassian's wolf shifted beneath his skin. His eyes flashed amber, but pride quickly buried whatever doubt had surfaced. Elara saw it happen. He knew something was wrong. He was choosing not to look. Seraphine touched his arm. "The Northern Alliance cannot survive another scandal," she whispered, loudly enough for the nearest elders to hear. "The realm needs certainty." Elara understood then. This was not merely an accusation. It was a replacement. The ceremony had never been postponed. It had been redirected. Cassian looked toward the 12 Alpha representatives seated below the dais. He saw their guarded expressions, the military insignia of House Ardent, and the future crown he had spent his entire life preparing to inherit. Then he looked at Elara. For 4 years, she had reorganized patrol routes, negotiated grain treaties, and prevented 3 border wars. She had stood beside him when older alphas mocked his inexperience. Yet in that moment, her loyalty weighed less than Seraphine's army. Cassian lifted his chin. "I, Cassian Vale, Crown Prince of the 12 Packs, reject Elara Voss as my fated mate and future Luna." The bond tore. Pain exploded beneath Elara's left shoulder. Her wolf screamed inside her. The force of the severance drove one knee toward the marble, but Elara locked every muscle in her body and remained standing. A thin line of blood slipped from her nose. She wiped it away with the back of her hand. No tears, no plea. Cassian watched her face, waiting for something: rage, desperation, perhaps proof that she still needed him. She gave him nothing. Seraphine stepped closer to the throne. Malrek raised a council notice bearing 4 wax seals. Because the accused possessed stolen royal property and compromised the eastern defenses, the council requests immediate execution for treason. A guard approached Elara and reached for the moonstone pendant at her throat. She stopped him with one look. Then she removed it herself. The pendant had belonged to her mother. It was the only object Elara had carried into the palace that did not bear Cassian's crest. She placed it on the marble floor between them. "I invoke the sacred mate law," she declared. "I demand a verified scent examination, an open ledger review, and a trial of 12. Malrek laughed softly. "A rejected woman accused of treason has no standing." Elara turned to Cassian. He knew the law. She had taught it to him before his first council hearing. "Will you deny me a trial?" Cassian's jaw hardened. "For the protection of the realm, yes." Something inside Elara became quiet. "Not broken. Finished." She faced the guards. "I will not kneel." Malrek raised his hand. "Take her." The guards moved. A chair scraped across stone. Every wolf in the hall froze. Alpha King Ronan Vale rose from the central throne. He had remained silent throughout the accusation, his dark eyes studying the evidence, the council, and his son. Now his aura crashed through the hall like thunder. The guards dropped to one knee. Ronan descended the dais and stopped beside Elara. He looked at the blood on her face, then at the royal seal on the tray. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of an ancient verdict. "Touch her, and you challenge the crown." Cassian went pale. Ronan removed the obsidian royal ring from his hand and pressed it against the council notice, burning his mark across Malrek's seals. "By the oldest law of this realm," the Alpha King declared, "Elara Voss is now under my claim." The obsidian mark burned through the council notice. For one suspended moment, no one in the great hall breathed. Then Alpha King Ronan turned toward the royal guards. "Escort Lady Elara to the East Tower." Cassian descended the dais so quickly that Seraphine's hand slipped from his arm. "You cannot be serious." Ronan did not look at him. "I have invoked the king's claim. My seriousness is no longer relevant. The law is. She is my rejected mate." The words struck Elara harder than they should have. "Rejected." Cassian spoke as though the severed bond had erased 4 years of loyalty in a single breath. Ronan's gaze finally settled on his son. "And yet you denied her the trial guaranteed to every accused wolf beneath this crown." Cassian's jaw tightened. "She may be a traitor. Then evidence will prove it." Ronan stepped between Elara and the guards, not touching her, but making it clear no one else would. "If the evidence fails, your judgment will answer for what happened here." The East Tower stood apart from the royal wing, connected to the palace by a narrow stone bridge. Elara crossed it beneath a black sky, flanked by 2 female guards. Every step sent fire through the broken mate mark beneath her left shoulder. She kept her breathing even until the chamber doors closed behind her. Then her knees gave way. Elara caught the edge of a carved wooden table before she struck the floor. The pain was no longer a single wound. It moved through her ribs in waves, tightening around her heart and lungs. She pressed one hand over her mouth. Blood warmed her palm. The door opened. Ronan entered alone. His eyes dropped to the blood immediately. "You should have called for the healer. I did not know prisoners were permitted to make requests." "You are not a prisoner." Elara straightened with effort. "Then remove the guards. They are outside to keep others from entering, not to keep you from leaving." "Can I walk out of the palace?" "No." "Then the difference is decorative." Ronan accepted the accusation without anger. "The claim lasts 72 days. During that time, no Alpha, council member, or royal heir may question, mark, imprison, or execute you without my presence." Elara wiped the blood from her lips. "And after 72 days, you may reject the protection, or renew it, only by your own consent." She studied him carefully. The entire realm believed an Alpha's claim meant ownership. Yet Ronan stood several feet away, his hands visible, his aura tightly controlled. "Why me?" His expression changed so slightly that another person might have missed it. Elara did not. "You were denied lawful judgment," he said. "That is not the full answer." "No." Before she could press him, the door opened again. Healer Malus entered carrying a worn leather case. She was a small woman with silver hair braided down her back, but the guards outside lowered their eyes when she passed. "Sit," Malus ordered. Elara obeyed, because remaining upright had become impossible. The healer pulled the collar of Elara's dress aside. The mate mark was dark and swollen, a jagged red line splitting it through the center. "This rejection was incomplete," Malus said. Ronan's voice lowered. "What does that mean?" He severed the bond publicly, but it had already entered the acceptance stage. Without a formal release ritual, the bond is tearing itself apart inside her. Elara's stomach turned. "How long?" Malus did not soften the truth. "If the fever progresses, weeks." Silence filled the chamber. Ronan's wolf pressed against his skin. The air thickened with restrained violence, but none of it was directed at Elara. "Treat her." "I can slow it," Malus replied. "I cannot repair what another mate chose to destroy." A commotion erupted outside. The doors opened before Ronan gave permission. Cassian entered. His gaze moved from Elara's blood-stained hand to his father standing beside her. Something dark flashed across his face. "So it is true." Ronan's expression became lethal. "Choose your next words carefully." Cassian ignored him. He looked directly at Elara. "You used the accusation to place yourself under his protection." Elara stared at him. Even now, he needed her to be guilty. Otherwise, He would have to face what he had done. She reached into the fold of her dress and removed a creased parchment. It was the formal request for a trial of 12. Cassian's unsigned approval line remained blank. She placed it on the table. "I asked you for law," she said. "You gave me humiliation." His eyes dropped to the document. "You expect me to believe you never planned this?" "I expected you to know me." The words left him silent. Malus shifted closer to Elara and inspected the damaged mark again. Suddenly, she froze. Beneath the inflamed skin, a second symbol had begun to appear. A pale silver crescent, crossed by 3 delicate lines. Malus touched it with trembling fingers. Ronan went completely still. "What is it?" Elara asked. The healer looked from Elara to the Alpha King. Her voice fell to a whisper. "That is not a mate scar." Cassian's face lost its color. Malus pulled her hand away. "It is the seal of the Moon Regent." The silver crescent beneath Elara's damaged mate mark faded before anyone could touch it again. Cassian took 1 step toward her. What did she mean? Malus pulled Elara's collar back into place. "It means this room is no longer safe." Ronan turned toward the guards outside. "Seal the east tower. No servant enters without Malus's approval." Cassian's eyes narrowed. "You are hiding something." Ronan faced his son with a stillness more threatening than anger. "I am protecting evidence from a prince who has already ignored it once." The words landed hard. Cassian looked at Elara, perhaps expecting her to defend him out of habit. She did not. By dawn, Elara Voss had disappeared from the palace records. In her place, the royal registry listed a temporary ward named Elara Grey, transferred under Crown protection for medical observation. The false name would not fool Malrek forever, but it might delay his assassins. Ronan arrived at the East Tower shortly after sunrise, wearing a dark traveling coat instead of ceremonial black. "You are moving me," Elara said. "I am giving you access to the only place Malrek cannot search." She glanced toward the guarded door. "And where is that?" "The archive beneath the first palace." Ronan led her through a narrow passage hidden behind an iron panel in the tower chapel. The staircase descended farther than Elara expected. The air grew colder with each turn, carrying the scent of dust, stone, and old wax. Her damaged bond protested the movement. She kept one hand against the wall and refused Ronan's offered arm. He lowered it without comment. At the bottom stood a door carved with 12 wolves surrounding a crescent moon. Ronan pressed his obsidian ring into the center. The stone unlocked with a deep groan. Rows of shelves vanished into darkness beyond the doorway. "This archive predates the Crown realm," he said. "Every original treaty, blood oath, coronation record, and sealed military ledger is stored here." Elara entered slowly. "You knew I would need this place. I suspected the documents used against you had been altered. Yet you said nothing in the hall." Ronan's jaw tightened. "I needed to know which members of the council would support an execution without examining the evidence." Elara turned on him. "So you let them condemn me to expose their loyalties? I did not know Cassian would reject you before the inquiry. But you knew enough to watch." The accusation remained between them. Ronan did not deny it. Elara looked away first, not because he had won, but because anger would not clear her name. She approached a long oak table where several border ledgers had already been placed. For the next 3 hours, she worked without speaking. The stolen map carried her authorization mark, but the supply codes referenced routes abandoned 8 months earlier. The forgery had been created from archived documents, not current intelligence. She compared the ink beneath a magnifying crystal. The black pigment contained crushed ironroot. Royal offices used cedar ash. Only the council office used ironroot because Malrek claimed it resisted moisture. Elara pushed the document toward Ronan. The evidence was prepared inside the council wing. Ronan examined the stain. "Can you prove who handled it?" "Not yet." She opened a dispatch ledger and ran her finger down the entry dates. 1 page had been removed. The cut was clean, made with a narrow blade rather than torn by hand. Someone had known exactly which record to erase. A faint warmth spread against Elara's chest. Her moonstone pendant, returned to her by Malus before they left the tower, had begun to glow beneath her dress. She pulled it free. The stone pulsed toward the far wall. Elara followed it past shelves of coronation scrolls to a small iron box embedded in the stone. There was no visible lock. She pressed the pendant against its lid. A hidden compartment clicked open. Inside, lay a bundle of letters tied with faded silver thread. Ronan stopped breathing. Elara noticed. "You have seen these before?" "No." The answer came too quickly. She lifted the first letter. The handwriting was elegant, but urgent. The name at the top made her fingers go cold. Ronan. Elara unfolded the page. The writer spoke of a child hidden from the council, of an ancient bloodline, and of a promise made beneath moonlight. At the bottom was a signature. Luana Iris. Elara's throat tightened. That was my mother's name. Ronan's face became unreadable. "The woman who raised you was named Elara Voss. She was my mother. She loved you as one." Elara looked up sharply. "You knew." Ronan stepped closer, but she raised one hand. No more careful answers. His silence confirmed everything. Elara opened the final letter. The paper had yellowed, but the last lines remained clear. "If Elara's blood awakens, protect her from the council, protect her from the crown, and whatever you do, do not let your son sit upon the throne." Elara slowly lifted her gaze. Ronan stood across from her, no longer merely the king who had claimed her. He was a man who had known her name before she ever entered his palace. And somewhere above them, Cassian was preparing to inherit a throne Elara's dead mother had warned must never become his. The warning in Liana's letter remained open on the archive table. "Do not let your son sit upon the throne." Elara read the line once more, then folded the page with deliberate care. "You expect me to trust you after this?" she asked. Ronan stood across from her, his face carved into the same controlled expression he wore before hostile councils. "No." The answer surprised her. "I expect you to decide what I deserve after you know the whole truth." Before Elara could respond, the archive door opened. General Taryn Reed entered with snow on his shoulders and a sealed message in his hand. A jagged silver dagger hung at his belt, its blade broken near the tip. "My king, Westvale Pack has closed its southern gate," he said. "Their grain stores are empty. Alpha Brenner claims the crown withheld the winter shipment." Ronan broke the seal. "If Westvale rebels, 3 surrounding packs will follow. They've already gathered armed wolves near the storehouses." Elara held out her hand. "Let me see the report." Taryn hesitated, glancing toward Ronan. The king passed it to her. Elara read the figures once, then again. "The shipment was not withheld," she said. "It was redirected." Ronan studied her. "The royal ledger shows it reached Westvale. The royal ledger is wrong." She crossed to the long oak table and opened the supply records she had examined earlier. Her finger moved across dates, wagon counts, road tolls, and storage declarations. "Westvale requires 800 sacks of grain each month. This entry lists 800 wagons." Taryn frowned. "A copying mistake?" "No. A concealment method. Anyone reviewing quickly would see the number 800 and move on." Ronan leaned over the ledger. "Where did the shipment go?" Elara compared the transport seals. "These wagons crossed the northern toll road. Westvale lies west." Ronan's eyes sharpened. "You are certain?" "I designed the winter routes." Silence followed. Ronan closed the ledger. "You have 12 hours. Elara looked at him. "To do what?" "Find the missing grain, identify who moved it, and give me a way to stop Westvale from revolting before sunrise." It was not an insult. It was a test. Elara straightened. "I will need access to all toll records, military requisitions, and private council expenditures." "Granted. And authority to question the transport officers." Taryn's eyebrows rose. Ronan removed a narrow black seal from his coat and placed it in her palm. "For 12 hours, you speak with my authority." The weight of the seal settled against her skin. Not protection, responsibility. For the next 10 hours, Elara worked without rest. She questioned wagon masters, compared wheel marks preserved in frozen mud, and found 3 transport officers whose statements used the same rehearsed wording. One finally broke when Elara showed him that the council had already prepared documents naming him as the sole thief. The missing grain had been sent to an abandoned military fortress north of the capital. Malrek had been feeding a private army. Ronan gathered his commanders in the war chamber. "We take the fortress tonight," Taryn said. "No," Elara replied. Several officers turned toward her. "A direct attack gives Malrek time to burn the records and blame rebels. Send empty crown wagons to the eastern road where his scouts can see them. He will believe we are moving grain away from Westvale." Ronan understood first. "He will send men to intercept them and weaken the fortress," Elara finished. Terran can seize the stores with half the force. What about Westvale? One commander asked. Open the emergency granaries at Riverhold. Use the old logging road. The first wagons can reach Westvale before dawn. That reserve belongs to the Crown, an elder objected. Elara faced him. The Crown exists because packs choose not to starve beneath it. Ronan looked around the table. Do as she says. The plan succeeded before sunrise. Terran's soldiers captured the northern fortress without losing a single wolf. The missing grain was recovered, along with enough weapons to arm hundreds. At Westvale, the first Crown wagons arrived as Alpha Brenner stood before his gathered fighters. The rebellion ended without bloodshed. When Elara entered the war chamber the next morning, exhaustion dragged at her body. But she remained upright. Ronan waited beside the map table. You saved 3,000 wolves from hunger, he said. I corrected a ledger. No. His gaze held hers. You saw people where the council saw numbers. For the first time, there was no guarded suspicion in his voice. Only respect. Terran entered, carrying a wooden weapons crate. We found this beneath the grain stores. He opened the lid. Inside lay dozens of newly forged silver blades. Each weapon bore the same royal insignia near the handle. Elara's blood chilled. It was not Malrek's crest. It was Cassian's. Cassian's crest had been stamped into every silver blade. The insignia was unmistakable. A black wolf beneath a rising crown. General Terran placed one of the weapons on the war table. I found 12 crates, he said. Enough to arm a private battalion. Ronan's expression remained still, but the room tightened beneath the pressure of his aura. Who authorized the forge order? Terran looked toward Elara. She had already opened the military requisition ledger. The authorization number belongs to the Crown Prince's office. Silence followed. Cassian was summoned before sunrise. He entered the chamber wearing yesterday's formal coat, his dark hair uncombed and his patience already frayed. His gaze moved from Ronan to Elara, then stopped on the silver blade. What is this? Ronan pushed the weapon toward him. You tell me. Cassian lifted it. The moment he saw his crest, uncertainty crossed his face. I approve no private army. Elara placed the requisition page beside the blade. This order was issued 3 months ago. Cassian barely glanced at it. My office processes hundreds of military requests. You signed this one personally, Ronan said. Cassian's jaw hardened. Lord Malrek told me the Northern Guard needed emergency weapons. Yet the weapons were hidden beside stolen grain, Elara replied. Not sent to the Northern Guard. Cassian turned on her. You seem remarkably comfortable accusing me in my father's war room. Elara felt the torn bond tighten beneath her shoulder, but she did not step back. I am reading what you signed. He looked at her as if her calm offended him more than the accusation. For 4 years, she had corrected his documents before they reached the council. She had caught missing seals, altered numbers, and vague orders that could be abused. He had called it unnecessary caution. Now every ignored detail waited on the table, like a blade pointed toward his throat. Ronan dismissed the officers. When the chamber emptied, Cassian faced his father. You believe I am part of this? I believe you signed something you did not understand. That is not the same as treason. No, Elara said. It is negligence. Cassian's wolf surged. The scent of ozone filled the room. Ronan stepped forward, but Elara lifted one hand. She did not need him to shield her. Cassian saw that gesture. Something bitter moved behind his eyes. You have been under his protection for less than 3 days, and already you speak with his authority. I speak with evidence. You always did enjoy making me look unprepared. The accusation revealed more than Cassian intended. Elara studied him. There it was. Not only fear of scandal, not only pressure from the council. He had resented her competence. Cassian realized she understood and looked away first. The palace began failing before noon. 3 grain contracts expired because Elara's renewal codes had never been transferred. 2 southern patrols arrived at the same border post, leaving another route unguarded. A delegation from Riverhold refused to meet with Seraphine because she could not answer questions about winter trade. Cassian moved from one crisis to another. Each problem carried Elara's absence. Her notes were precise, but her systems had depended on judgment no ledger could replace. By evening, Cassian stood alone in his office, surrounded by unopened petitions. He found an old routing chart in Elara's handwriting. Red ink marked weak supply lines. Blue ink marked political risks. A note in the margin read, Cassian will be blamed if this fails. Correct, before council review. She had protected him even in documents he had never bothered to read. A knock sounded. Seraphine entered carrying a cream-colored council notice. The engagement ceremony has been approved, she said. Cassian did not look up. Postpone it. Her smile faltered. My father has already invited the Northern Alphas. I said postpone it. Seraphine placed the notice over Elara's chart. The realm needs stability. Every hour you delay gives people time to question your judgment. Cassian stared at her hand covering Elara's writing. Did your father ask me to sign a weapons order? Seraphine went still. Malrek asks you to sign many things. That was not my question. She withdrew her hand. You are exhausted. Cassian moved toward the security cabinet built into the wall. Inside were crystal recordings from restricted palace corridors. He selected the archive wing from the night before Elara's arrest. The image shimmered into view. A cloaked figure entered Elara's office after midnight. The face remained hidden, but when the figure reached for the door, moonlight struck a gold ring. The crest of House Ardent flashed clearly. Cassian turned toward Seraphine. Her expression had already changed. The softness was gone. What did your family do? She took a slow breath. Then she placed one hand over her abdomen. You cannot turn against me now. Cassian's anger faltered. Seraphine held his gaze. I am carrying your heir. Seraphine's claim reached the royal council before sunrise. By noon, the palace bells announced that the Crown Prince had secured an heir. Cassian stood beneath the western balcony, while servants raised House Ardent banners beside his own. He should have felt relief. Instead, the broken mate bond pulled beneath his ribs like a tightening wire. Across the palace, Elara woke with blood on her pillow. Healer Malus found her sitting upright, one hand pressed over the damaged mark on her shoulder. Cassian has accepted another bond publicly, Malus said. Your body felt it. Elara wiped her mouth. Then make it stop. I cannot sever what was never properly released. Malus placed an old medical file on the table. Its leather cover bore a white wax seal shaped like a crescent crossed by 3 lines, the same symbol beneath Elara's skin. Your mother left this with me 29 years ago. Elara stared at the name written across the first page. Infant heiress. Female. Moon. Regent blood. Confirmed. My name is Voss. Meader. The people who raised you gave you that name to keep you alive. Malus opened the file. The birth record identified Elara's biological mother as Lady Lyanna Heiress, last daughter of the ancient regent line. No father was listed. Beneath the record was a warning written in Malus's hand. If the child's blood awakens, the royal seal will answer to her before it answers to any alpha. Elara looked toward Ronan. He had stood near the window since Malus entered, silent and rigid. You knew, she said. I knew who Lyanna was. That was not my question. Ronan turned. Yes. The words stripped the air from the room. Elara rose despite the weakness in her legs. For how long? Since before you came to the palace. And you watched me serve your son. You watched the council call my family traitors. I believed silence kept you hidden. It kept me useful. Ronan's control finally cracked. No. His aura struck the walls, making the candle flames bend. Lyanna saved my life during the Ash Rebellion. Malrek's faction had surrounded the old throne room. She opened a passage beneath the palace and stayed behind to mislead them. Ronan's voice roughened. She made me swear that if her bloodline returned, I would protect her child from the council and from the crown itself. Elara's anger did not soften. But you did not protect Mara and Tomas Voss. Ronan looked away. Her adoptive parents had been executed for treason when Elara was 12. I believed Malrek's evidence, he admitted. By the time I discovered it had been forged, they were dead, and you had disappeared into the eastern territories. So this claim is guilt. It began as an oath. And now? Ronan did not answer quickly enough. Elara felt the silence shift between them. Dangerous and intimate. She stepped back. Do not confuse protecting me with wanting me. I have not. Then prove it. Malus placed the Luna ring and Ronan's obsidian royal seal on the table. We need certainty, she said. Bloodline records can be altered. Ancient magic cannot. Elara cut her palm with Malus's silver instrument. One drop of blood struck the royal seal. The obsidian surface flashed white. A deep vibration traveled through the tower. Far below, Bells that had not rung in centuries began sounding beneath the palace. The Luna ring lifted from the table. Its moonstone blazed silver, casting the symbol of the Moon Regent across the wall. Ronan lowered his head. Even Malus bowed. Elara remained standing. "What does this give me?" "The authority to summon the trial of 12, Ronan said. "To suspend a coronation. To judge whether a royal heir is fit to rule." Cassian. Yes, the realization settled heavily. Her mother's warning had not been about revenge. It had been about preventing an unworthy king from inheriting unchecked power. Elara closed her bleeding hand. "I will call the trial." Ronan's head lifted. "But when your 72-hour claim ends, I am leaving." "Elara, you hid my birth, my parents' innocence, and my power. You made decisions about my life because you believed your intentions were enough." Her voice remained calm, which made every word cut deeper. "I will not trade Cassian's arrogance for yours." Ronan accepted the blow without defending himself. Then his right hand trembled. A black line appeared beneath his palm and climbed toward his wrist. Malus caught his arm. The mark spread like ink through his veins. "The blood oath," she whispered. Elara's anger gave way to alarm. Ronan pulled his hand free. "It is nothing. It is killing you," Malus said. Elara stared at the dark veins. Malus looked directly at her. "Lyanna bound his life to yours. If you die before the trial of 12 is completed, the oath will stop his heart." Ronan had not claimed Elara merely to save her from execution. He had placed himself between her and death because an ancient promise had already chained their lives together. The announcement of Seraphine's pregnancy spread faster than the truth. By morning, servants had filled the palace chapel with white roses. Council scribes drafted succession documents. Northern soldiers arrived wearing house-ardent colors, claiming they had come to protect the unborn heir. Cassian watched them enter through the western gate. They looked less like guests than an occupying army. Seraphine stood beside him on the balcony, one hand resting over her stomach. "You should smile," she murmured. "The realm is watching." Cassian did not move. "Malus will examine you today." Her fingers tightened against the fabric of her dress. "My personal healer has already confirmed the pregnancy. The heir belongs to the crown. The royal healer will confirm it." Seraphine turned toward him. For the first time, fear appeared beneath her practiced softness. "You do not trust me. I trusted your father's documents." Cassian looked toward the northern banners rising beside his own crest. That nearly armed a rebellion. 2 hours later, Seraphine lay in the royal infirmary, while Malus prepared a silver bowl of testing water. Cassian stood near the door. Malrek had demanded entry but had been refused. Malus pricked Seraphine's finger and let 3 drops of blood fall into the bowl. The water should have turned gold if royal blood and new life were present together. Instead, it remained clear. Seraphine sat up sharply. "The test is old. It is unreliable." Malus lifted a sealed medical report from the nearby table. "The report supplied by your healer contains genuine pregnancy blood." Seraphine exhaled with relief too soon. "It does not belong to you." Cassian's face became still. Malus placed a second vial beside the report. "The blood belongs to an Omega named Nessa Hale. She is 6 months pregnant and employed in your private household." Seraphine looked at Cassian. He did not defend her. "You lied about my heir," he said. Her expression hardened. "I gave the realm what it needed. You gave me a stolen child's blood." Cassian stepped closer, rage gathering beneath his skin. "Did you plant the royal seal in Elara's cloak?" Seraphine's composure cracked. "I did what was necessary to keep you from destroying yourself over a woman who would have ruled through you." The words struck their true target. Cassian had feared Elara's strength. Seraphine had known it, and she had used that fear like a weapon. Before he could order her arrest, the infirmary doors opened. Malrek entered with 6 council guards. "My daughter is protected by Northern Treaty law," he declared. "No accusation may be made before the Luna recognition ceremony." Cassian looked at the armed men. "This palace is not your territory." "No," Malrek replied calmly. "But soon it will belong to your heir." His gaze flicked toward Seraphine. She understood the command beneath his words. Later that evening, father and daughter met inside the abandoned council chapel. No candles burned. Malrek stood beneath a cracked statue of the moon goddess, his hands clasped behind his back. "You failed to secure the pregnancy lie." Cassian forced the examination. "And now he suspects everything." Seraphine's voice trembled with anger. You told me Elara would be executed. She would have been if Ronan had not invoked the claim. Then stop blaming me for the king's interference. Malrek turned so quickly that Seraphine stepped back. If Elara reaches the trial of 12, she will expose the weapons, the grain, and the Voss executions. Our family will lose its lands. Your brothers will hang. Every northern pack that supported us will tear House Ardent apart to save itself. Seraphine swallowed. What do you want me to do? Elara must not enter the trial alive. He placed a small crystal vial in her hand. Silverthorn. 1 drop stops a wolf's heart. Put it into her medicine before the Luna ceremony. Seraphine stared at the poison. She had wanted recognition, safety, a title no one could take from her. Now the path toward it was covered in blood. Her fingers closed around the vial. After tonight, Malrek said, there can be no hesitation. The Luna recognition ceremony began beneath the open glass dome of the Great Hall. Moonlight fell across the ancestral ring, resting on a black velvet cushion. Seraphine entered in white, escorted by northern guards. Cassian waited beside the throne, his face unreadable. Elara stood at the edge of the hall under Terran's protection. Malus had intercepted the poisoned medicine before she drank it, but the silverthorn had cut the healer's palm when the vial shattered. Royal blood had not been spilled, but blood had. Ronan stood beside Elara, the black oath mark now reaching past his wrist. Malrek raised the Luna ring, except Elara immediately knew it was false. The moonstone had no pulse, no warmth. Seraphine had replaced it. Malrek slid the counterfeit ring onto his daughter's finger. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the glass dome darkened. A silver light burst from beneath Elara's moonstone pendant. Gasps spread through the hall. The true Luna ring appeared above her open palm, glowing like captured moonlight. It descended onto her finger and locked into place. Seraphine screamed. The false ring heated against her skin, burning through the forged mate mark beneath it. Smoke rose from her hand as she tore at the metal. A voice older than the crown rolled through the great hall. Every alpha froze. Every wolf bowed. The false claimant has spilled royal blood. Seraphine looked down at her burned hand. Then she saw the blood on Malus's sleeve, and understood that the ancient ring had witnessed everything. The true Luna ring locked around Elara's finger. Silver light flooded the great hall, washing over every banner, blade, and terrified face. The ancient voice faded, but its command remained inside the bones of every wolf present. One by one, the 12 visiting alphas rose from their seats. Then they bowed to Elara, not to Ronan, not to Cassian, to her. Seraphine stood near the dais, clutching her burned hand against her chest. The false ring lay smoking on the marble beside her. This is a trick, Malrek shouted. The king has corrupted the ceremony. No one answered him. Elara stepped into the center of the hall. The damaged mate mark beneath her shoulder still burned, and severance fever weakened her legs, but her voice carried without effort. Bring me the royal seal. Malrek's face tightened. That seal belongs to the throne. It belongs to the law. Ronan removed the obsidian seal from his hand. For the first time since claiming her, he did not approach as her protector. He stopped several feet away and held the ring out on his open palm, allowing Elara to decide whether to take it. She did. The instant her fingers closed around the obsidian, white fire spread across its surface. The symbol of the Moon Regent appeared above the hall. 3 crossed crescents. The 12 alphas bowed lower. Elara turned toward the council table. Under the first crown accord, I invoke the authority of the Moon Regent. Malrek struck his fist against the table. You cannot invoke a dead title. The ring recognized her, Alpha Brenner of Westvale said. His pack had nearly starved because of Malrek's stolen grain. Anger roughened every word. The royal seal recognized her, another alpha added. And the crown archives confirm her bloodline, Ronan said. Cassian stood beside the throne, staring at Elara as though he had never truly seen her before. The bond between them stirred. For one desperate moment, his wolf reached toward hers, calling through the damaged connection. Elara felt it. Cassian saw the slight tension in her shoulders and mistook it for longing. Elara, he said softly. She looked at him. There was no love in her expression. No hatred either. Only distance. The bond pulled again, but Elara closed her hand around the royal seal and forced the connection back. Cassian flinched as if she had struck him. Once, a single command from him had made her wolf listen. Now even fate could not make her turn. "I formally suspend the Crown Prince's right of succession," Elara declared, "until the trial of 12 determines whether he violated sacred mate law, enabled rebellion, or knowingly denied an innocent woman lawful judgment." Shock swept through the hall. Cassian descended from the dais. "You cannot remove me because I rejected you." "No," Elara replied. "I am suspending you because you placed pride above evidence." His face tightened. "I was protecting the realm. You protected your crown." She held his gaze. "The realm paid the price." Malrek moved before Cassian could answer. He placed a thick blood-packed paper on the council table. "This entire display proves nothing except conspiracy." 2 council guards unrolled the document. It contained military orders, secret meetings, and supposed agreements between Ronan and Elara. According to the pact, Ronan had promised to remove Cassian and install Elara as a puppet ruler in exchange for control of the Moon Regent bloodline. Murmurs spread among the alphas. Malrek pointed at the bottom of the document. "The king's blood signature is present. He planned this before Elara was accused." Ronan examined the page. "That is not my signature." "Blood cannot be forged," Malrek said. "It can be stolen," Malus replied from beside Terran. Her injured hand was wrapped in white cloth. Elara studied the document. Malrek had prepared it carefully. The parchment was old. The language matched pre-crown treaties. Even Ronan's scent had been pressed into the wax. But the dates were wrong. The agreement referred to the Western Grain Rebellion 2 weeks before Westvale had closed its gates. Elara placed the stolen pack ledger beside the pact. This document was written by someone who already knew the grain had been redirected. Malrek's confidence flickered. Terran stepped forward and placed the security crystal on the table. Its image showed the cloaked figure entering Elara's office and hiding the royal seal. The ardent ring flashed clearly on the stranger's hand. Next came the military requisition. Cassian's authorization number appeared beneath the order for the silver weapons. Then Malus placed Seraphine's false pregnancy report beside it. Elara looked around the hall. The council did not make one mistake. It built a chain. Stolen grain created unrest. Hidden weapons created an army. Forged evidence removed me. A false heir was meant to control the throne. Seraphine lowered her eyes. Malrek backed toward the council guards. "You have accusations, not proof of authorship." Elara lifted the blood-packed paper. "Then let moonlight reveal whose blood truly signed it." Terran opened the glass dome. Cold moonlight poured onto the page. Ronan's name began to dissolve. The hall fell silent. Dark letters emerged beneath it. Cassian stepped closer. His face emptied of color. At the bottom of the blood pact, written in his own blood, was the signature. Cassian Vale. Cassian stared at his own name written in blood. The great hall seemed to tilt beneath him. "I never signed that pact." Elara held the parchment beneath the moonlight. "The blood belongs to you." "I signed military authorizations," Cassian said. "Never an agreement to overthrow my father." Malrek stepped away from the council table. "A prince should understand the documents placed before him." Cassian turned toward him. "You told me they were emergency defense orders. And you signed them without reading." The admission moved through the hall like poison. Cassian's wolf surged beneath his skin, furious not only at Malrek, but at himself. Elara had warned him about vague military language for years. She had corrected every dangerous clause before it reached his hand. After rejecting her, he had signed whatever preserved his image of control. Alpha Brenner rose from his seat. "Did those orders redirect our grain?" Malrek remained silent. Elara opened the pack ledger. "The same authorization code appears on the grain transfer, the weapons shipment, and the northern troop payments." Cassian looked at the entries. His signature had not created the conspiracy, but his arrogance had opened every door it needed. "I did not know," he said. "Elara met his gaze. That does not make the consequences disappear." General Terran stepped into the center of the hall. He placed his broken silver dagger on the evidence table, then drew a second blade from beneath his coat. This was taken from the assassin who entered the East Tower last night. The weapon was narrow, black-handled, and coated with dried silverthorn. Near the guard was a tiny forge mark. A burning falcon, the crest of House Ardent. Seraphine's face lost its remaining color. Malrek spoke quickly. "Any blacksmith can copy a family mark." Terran placed the security crystal beside the dagger. The crystal flared. A moving image formed above the table. Seraphine appeared in Elara's former chamber, wearing a servant's cloak. She opened Elara's ceremonial garment and pushed the stolen royal seal deep into its lining. The image changed. Seraphine handed a vial of blood to her private healer. Then came another recording. She stood inside the abandoned council chapel with Malrek. Elara's voice was calm. "Play the sound." Malrek's order filled the hall. Elara must not enter the trial alive. Seraphine closed her eyes. The gathered wolves began to growl. Cassian looked at her as though he no longer recognized the woman he had chosen. "You framed her." Seraphine's composure finally shattered. "I was protecting my family. You stole another woman's blood and called it my child. My father said you needed an heir before the council would crown you." She pointed toward Malrek. "He planned the grain theft. He ordered the weapons hidden. He forged the evidence against Elara's parents years ago." Malrek's eyes became cold. "Be careful, daughter. You promised no one would die." "I promised you a crown." Seraphine laughed bitterly. "You promised yourself a king you could control." Malrek moved before the guards realized his intention. He seized the silver dagger from the evidence table and lunged toward Elara. Cassian shouted. Taran reached for his sword. Ronan was faster than both of them. He stepped between Elara and the blade. Silver entered beneath his ribs. The sound Ronan made was not a cry, but a low, stunned exhale. Malrek tore the dagger free. Blood spread across the king's black coat. Elara caught Ronan as his knees struck the marble. The Luna ring blazed. Something ancient rose inside her, not rage alone, but authority carried through generations of women whose names the crown had tried to erase. Enough. The single word shook the pillars. Every wolf in the hall was forced to its knees. Cassian fell beside the dais. The council guards collapsed. Even Malrek dropped the dagger and struck the floor, his face twisting as he fought a command older than any alpha bloodline. Elara stood over Ronan, one blood-covered hand pressed against his wound. By Moon Regent authority, Lord Malrek Ardent is stripped of council rank and charged with treason, murder, theft of royal blood, and conspiracy against the 12 Pacts. Taran dragged Malrek backward in silver restraints. Seraphine remained kneeling, staring at her father as though the crown she had murdered for had turned to ash. Malus hurried to Ronan. She cut open his coat and examined the wound. The blade had entered near his heart. Black veins spread outward from the injury, joining the blood oath mark already climbing his arm. "He is losing too much blood," Malus said. "Then stop it," Elara demanded. "I cannot." Cassian crawled closer, his pride finally gone. "Save him." Malus looked at the Luna ring, then at the royal seal in Elara's hand. "There is one way." Elara understood before the healer explained. "The crown bond." Malus nodded. "Moon Regent blood can draw the silverthorn from his heart, but the bond must be completed willingly." Ronan's eyes opened weakly. "No." His blood-covered hand closed around Elara's wrist. "You will not bind yourself to save me." The hall watched in silence. Cassian looked at the woman he had rejected, and the father dying in her arms. Malus's voice became urgent. "If the bond is completed, it may join your lives permanently." Ronan's heartbeat weakened beneath Elara's palm. For the first time since entering the Great Hall, the Moon Regent had power over every wolf in the realm, but only Elara could decide whether saving the king would cost her freedom. Ronan's heartbeat faded beneath Elara's palm. "Complete the crown bond," Malus urged. Now. Silverthorn spread through the king's veins, darkening the skin beneath his torn coat. Around them, every alpha remained kneeling beneath Elara's command. Cassian stared at his father's blood on the marble. For the first time in his life, he possessed no authority capable of fixing what his choices had broken. Elara placed the Luna ring against Ronan's wound. The moonstone burned white. Ancient words rose inside her mind, offering power at a price. One life joined to another. One throne. One permanent bond. Ronan's eyes had closed, but his final refusal remained clear. "You will not bind yourself to save me." Elara looked at Malus. "He cannot consent. He will die. Then I will save him without owning him." Elara cut her palm with the broken silver dagger. She pressed her bleeding hand over Ronan's wound and placed the royal seal between them. "I invoke the first law of the Moon Regent," she declared. "No bond is sacred without choice." The Luna ring resisted. Pain shot through Elara's arm as the silverthorn entered her blood. Her knees nearly buckled, but she held on. "I give him my strength," she said, "not my freedom." The royal seal cracked. White fire surged through Ronan's body. Black poison poured from his wound in thin, smoking streams. The blood oath mark on his arm shattered into silver fragments, then vanished. Ronan drew a sudden breath. Elara collapsed beside him. 3 days later, the trial of 12 delivered its judgment. Lord Malrek Ardent was convicted of treason, attempted murder, theft of royal blood, and conspiracy against the crown. His lands were divided among the packs he had starved, and he was sentenced to life beneath the silver mines he had once used to arm his private soldiers. Seraphine stood before the great hall with her burned hand uncovered. The false mate mark had scarred her skin permanently. She was stripped of title, inheritance, and council protection. Her punishment was exile to the northern border settlements, where she would work under the families whose grain her father had stolen. Cassian's judgment came last. Elara stood before him wearing no ceremonial crown. She needed none. "You denied lawful evidence," she said. "You signed orders without understanding them. You rejected your mate to protect a throne you had not earned." Cassian lowered his head. "I loved you. You loved the version of me that made you feel powerful." The truth cut deeper than any punishment. The 12 Alphas suspended Cassian's right of succession for 10 years. He would serve at Westvale under Alpha Brenner, rebuilding the supply roads damaged by his negligence. Before the guards escorted him away, Cassian looked at Elara. "Is there any chance the bond can be repaired?" The damaged mark beneath her shoulder gave one final ache. Elara met his eyes without cruelty. "I forgive the man you may become." Hope entered his face. "But I will never return to the man you were." The remaining thread of their mate bond dissolved. This time, Elara felt no tearing, only release. Ronan awakened that evening. Elara stood near the window of his chamber, while moonlight crossed the floor between them. He tried to rise. She pushed him gently back against the pillows. "You disobeyed the healer," he said. "I rewrote the ritual." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Of course you did." Ronan removed the obsidian ring from his hand. The royal seal bore a thin white fracture where Elara had broken the old magic. He placed it on the table. "By my authority as Alpha King, I dissolve the king's claim." Elara watched him carefully. "You would release me while the council is still unstable?" "I release you because protection without freedom becomes another prison." He looked away before continuing. "You owe me nothing. Not your title, not your loyalty, not your heart." Several weeks later, the 12 packs gathered for the new coronation accords. Elara entered the great hall as Moon Regent. Ronan waited beside the throne, not upon it. The Luna ring rested in Elara's palm. She could leave. She could rule alone. She could build a realm beyond every Alpha's control. Ronan made no move to stop her. That was why she crossed the distance between them. She placed the Luna ring in his hand. "If you stand beside me," she said, "not above me, I choose you." Ronan closed his fingers around the ring. "Then beside you is where I will remain." Together, they established the law of free bond, granting every rejected mate protection, trial, and the right to choose a future beyond fate. Cassian had once believed his father claimed the woman he discarded. The truth was simpler. Ronan never took Elara from him. Cassian lost her when he chose power over truth, and Elara did not become queen because a king saved her. She became queen because, once completely free, she chose the man who was strong enough to honor her freedom.